A single moment can redefine a star's reputation forever, and no one exemplifies that more than this artist who spent years climbing to the top, only to watch everything threaten to crumble beneath his feet. His path wasn't just lined with awards and accolades. It was also strewn with scandalous rumors, heated feuds, and a personal life that became almost unrecognizable. Some people worship his bold creativity, while others believe he's gone far beyond pushing boundaries. However you see him, there's no denying he has left an indelible mark on both music and culture. And it all began with one fateful introduction to the industry that would set the tone for a career defined by extremes. In his early days, this aspiring musician was known for one key trait: unshakable confidence. He walked into record labels wearing clothes no one else dared to, pitching songs that industry executives said would never make it on mainstream radio. Critics at the time dismissed his style as too different, but he refused to conform. That defiance turned him into a magnet for a small yet devoted group of fans who craved something fresh. And it wasn't long before a major label finally gave him a shot, paving the way for a debut release that would either launch him into the stratosphere or crash and burn with no middle ground. When the album finally dropped, it became a sensation. Listeners were stunned by the fusion of raw emotional lyrics and orchestral-level production. Industry insiders suddenly called him a genius, and the press couldn't stop buzzing about this overnight success who seemed to break every rule. But behind the scenes, close friends whispered that he wasn't just focused on music. He was also consumed by a need to prove he was bigger, smarter, and more essential to the cultural conversation than anyone else. Even in those early days, backstage rumors suggested that he clashed with producers, argued with award show organizers, and stomped out of interviews the moment he felt misunderstood. People excused it at first, believing it was the byproduct of raw brilliance. Little did they know, these traits were only the tip of the iceberg. The real storm arrived when he made an appearance at a prominent awards ceremony that would go down in history for all the wrong reasons. He appeared on the red carpet looking confident, greeting photographers with a grin that suggested he was about to dominate the night. But the moment an up-and-coming artist took the stage to accept a major award, he couldn't hold back. He interrupted the proceedings in a move that left the audience stunned, cameras rolling, and social media brimming with outrage by the time the night was over. No one had seen anything like it. Within hours, media outlets blasted him for the apparent disrespect, while fans of both artists erupted into heated debates. That single act drew a dividing line that would follow him for years. Even after issuing a forced-sounding apology, many believed it was the true unveiling of an ego that was growing out of control. As the shockwaves from that public meltdown rippled outward, deeper questions about his psyche began to surface. Reporters dug into his past, searching for any sign that he had always been prone to larger-than-life behavior. Old classmates came forward claiming he was the class rebel, someone who questioned every authority figure and never took no for an answer. Former collaborators muttered that he was impossible to work with because of an uncompromising vision that bordered on arrogance. Yet, at the same time, creative partners insisted that he was a tortured genius whose internal struggles simply spilled out in unpredictable ways. This tug-of-war between brilliance and chaos became the cornerstone of his celebrity persona. People couldn't help but watch, torn between fascination and shock, never sure if the next headline would be about a groundbreaking musical masterpiece or another shocking outburst. Amid these swirling rumors, a darker narrative started to creep in. A few tabloids speculated that he was dealing with serious emotional turmoil, pointing to a series of cryptic social media posts where he spoke about feeling disconnected and misunderstood. Some fans wondered if this was a cry for help, while others dismissed it as a publicity stunt. Tensions escalated when close friends refused to confirm or deny anything. Meanwhile, the artist himself made increasingly erratic comments, hinting that he was battling forces beyond anyone's understanding. In interviews, he'd go off on tangents, talking about controlling industries, hidden agendas, and secrets in the entertainment world that the public wasn't ready to hear. Whether you believed him or not, those rants fed a growing online community dedicated to dissecting his every word, convinced that coded messages lay between the lines. Critics, on the other hand, called him paranoid, desperate to hold on to the spotlight. It was impossible to know where the truth ended and the performance began. Just when everyone thought they had him figured out, he took a wild turn by collaborating with an unlikely group of musicians whose style clashed dramatically with his. Fans were stunned to see him standing side by side with artists he had once mocked. It was a recipe for disaster or possibly for genius. Nobody knew which. Despite their skepticism, the public was curious enough to watch this bizarre experiment unfold. The resulting tracks were divisive. Some hailed them as groundbreaking, crediting the artist's willingness to step out of his comfort zone. Others found the music jarring and disjointed, complaining that he was more focused on making headlines than making good songs. Either way, the buzz was unstoppable. During interviews, he declared that his evolution was unstoppable, calling himself an innovator on a mission to reshape culture. By now, his critics were rolling their eyes, while his supporters insisted that they were witnessing a modern-day visionary who simply needed more time to perfect his craft. But it wasn't just the music that kept him under a microscope. Over time, a slew of controversies began stacking up, each more intense than the last. He launched into politically charged rants on social platforms, praising figures many found reprehensible, and then suddenly switching sides with no explanation. He'd appear on talk shows late at night wearing cryptic outfits and spouting statements that made even the hosts uncomfortable. Rumors circulated that his big-name sponsors were on the verge of dropping him, yet official announcements never seemed to materialize. The speculation only fueled more social media chatter, with some people predicting that he was moments away from a catastrophic downfall, while others believed he was playing a masterful game designed to keep his name in everyone's mouths. Eventually, the backlash exploded. Even some of his longtime fans began to question whether they could keep supporting him. Major media outlets published exposés about his alleged manipulation tactics, describing him as someone who would do anything for attention. Reporters cited unnamed sources claiming he orchestrated controversies on purpose. In the meantime, a new wave of rumor took hold that he was working secretly on a massive project destined to silence all doubters once and for all. Nobody seemed to have concrete evidence of this project, yet the whispers wouldn't go away. Some speculated it was a tell-all documentary. Others claimed he was pivoting into an entirely new genre of art. The more outlandish theories floated the possibility of him disappearing completely, only to re-emerge under a different persona. The lack of confirmation left fans scrambling for clues in every interview, music video, and tweet. While the chatter grew increasingly chaotic, the man himself kept feeding the conversation with cryptic comments that only sparked more speculation. One day he'd imply that the music industry had blacklisted him. The next, he'd insist he'd reached a level of genius that nobody could comprehend, teasing that he was on the verge of a breakthrough that would rewrite the rules for all artists who came after him. A few close insiders dropped hints that his mental state was fragile, urging the public to show compassion. Others insisted that his unpredictable behavior was part of a larger scheme, a strategic performance meant to expose an ugly side of fame and the media machine. But that wasn't where his story ended. When he finally re-emerged with a new album, it wasn't the triumphant return many had expected. Instead, it was layered with opaque lyrics referencing betrayal, hidden enemies, and a sense of isolation. The production was minimalistic, a far cry from the lush sound that had once defined his music. Critics gave mixed reviews, some calling it a desperate move to stay relevant, others praising it as a vulnerable self-portrait of a man wrestling with his demons. Despite the polarizing reception, the record still debuted high on the charts, illustrating that, love him or hate him, people were still paying attention. That alone was an achievement in an industry where relevance can slip away overnight. In the midst of all this, fresh accusations emerge. Rivals in the music scene suggested he was manipulating chart rules or relying on paid social media tactics to drum up controversy. They pointed to strangely timed online feuds that erupted whenever his streaming numbers dipped. Fans defending him argued that every major artist uses marketing tactics, so singling him out was unfair. Yet the questions only grew louder. Was there a genuine downward spiral happening behind the scenes, or was this an orchestrated storm to keep his name in the headlines?